What's up, Pro Guys family? Welcome back to another video. My name is Nathan Ng, and today we're going to be discussing 10 insane tips that are barely used that will help you guys win more games. I know a lot of you guys are trying to rank up, and these tips are definitely going to help with that. But before we get on with that though, it is time for our question of the day. Today's question being, what is your favorite piece of utility? Mine is personally the flashbang. For just $200, you're able to blind and deafen people, allowing you to basically have a free kill as long as the flash was thrown right. To me, that's just basically insane and quite valuable. Aside from that though, it's just super fun to play around with. Picking someone that's full blind dabbing is always such a good feeling. That I can never get quite enough of. Enough about that though, it's time for the tricks. For our first trick that surprisingly not a lot of people use, we have self-pop flashing. We mentioned this quite a lot in our videos, but we're gonna go ahead and explain it more in depth. The legendary self-pop flash is a thing that all aggressive players live for. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and is usually very effective. Surprisingly enough though, it is definitely not something everyone is using yet. Far from it actually. This little trick has the ability to pick up free kills all the time, and it's definitely underused, especially in the lower ranks. And even the few people that are aware of it are oftentimes not familiar with the variations of it yet. So let's go ahead and go over a few of those right now. Starting off with the standard one, the most common standard self-pop flash, also known as the running self-pop flash, is definitely the most used and probably also the easiest to pull off. You can do this cheeky flash by running while pulling out a flash and then right-click throwing it while either looking fully upward or aiming to where your back would be to let it pop behind you. This flash is really quite easy to do, but it's also pretty obvious. Even though it's obvious, you're forcing your opponents to either face away from you and the flash or just face you and get flashed simultaneously. This is, of course, no matter how obvious the flash might be, quite hard to deal with. The second variation of the flash is pretty much the same thing as the previous, except now that instead of running, you're walking. Oh, and for this one, you definitely want to be facing upwards, otherwise your flash won't really go where it needs to. This flash is already less obvious because they can't hear you running, and it also gives your opponents less chance to react to it. But it is also a little bit more difficult to pull off, and well, it's easier to mess up. Next variation on the list is created by Stewie2K and is best used while in a smoke. It's really effective, but it's also really easy to mess up, so make sure you practice this one beforehand. To do this flash, you need to first crouch in the smoke. Look right up and then right click throw. As soon as you've thrown the flash, wait for the perfect timing and run out of the smoke as it pops. Anyone holding the smoke should be now full blind and easily killable. Another variation that you can do is essentially the same as the first one, but instead using both mouse buttons. This flash will go a little bit higher, and thus is really great for pushing things on mid and Mirage as a CT while you're running up the ramp. The last variation is just anything that you can come up with really. You now know enough about self-pop flashes to come up with the variations yourself, so throw your self-pop flashes as you please. Just to give you some direction, some people like to throw their pop flashes running backwards, others sideways, and again, use both mouse buttons, etc, etc. There's tons of options here. Another tip that isn't necessarily unknown but definitely isn't often used is just throwing simple flashes for teammates, especially on the CT side. Let's say that you're playing in Connector on Mirage and you see that your teammate is trying to defend an A push from default. He calls you or sees you on the radar and there are two people on Tetris and you decided to flash behind your teammates in the sky. Things like this should become instincts because it would drastically help your teammates defending, because he will definitely be fighting the opponents that are now, thanks to your flash, blind. And your teammate will not even have to focus away from his fight to ask you for a flash, nor would he even need to turn. These simple flashes don't even require a lineup and can just be used on the fly, but they will drastically impact how many kills your side anchor will be able to get. These flashes, although amazingly simple, are barely ever thrown at the higher levels. So I'd like to challenge you to become a better teammate next game and help out one of your teammates to get more kills, allowing you to win more rounds and more games. Trust me, just try this one out. It doesn't even require you to learn any lineups, and all you have to do is just pay slight attention to whether your teammate needs your help or not. A skill that's great to have regardless. Another thing that is a little bit selfless that will definitely help your team win a lot more on pistol rounds is bunny hopping. You can bunny hop onto sides or choke points backwards or even face down during pistol rounds. It might sound and look silly, but you'll definitely be very hard to hit, allowing your teammates behind you get easy kills while your opponents are trying to shoot at you. Of course, once you've created enough space, you can play as you normally would, but trying out this move can definitely win your team the round without you even having to get any kills. Next on the list is saving your smoke. A lot of the time in matchmaking games at any rank, people waste their smoke or don't even use it to their maximum potential. A smoke grenade can potentially be the best grenade in the game by far due to its ability to delay an enemy push for 18 seconds or force them to push through it in an unfavorable way. The thing is though that if you use this 18-second delay at 1 minute 45, it doesn't really matter. But if it's used when there's only 30 seconds on the clock, that leaves your opponent with 12 seconds, which obviously makes them stressed out just a little bit more. Therefore, it pushes them to do things that they don't normally do, but also forces them to make an action. Therefore, it's safe to say that the later the round goes, the more potent your smoke is. At the start of the round, it barely even matters, but in the final moments, it's truly priceless. Understanding that is the first part of using your utility more effectively, but you're not quite there yet. What we want you to do now is try to hold onto your smoke as long as possible. Don't just throw it right away unless you have a very exact goal in mind, and if you want to stall for your teammates so you can focus on mid, that's fine. But if you're just throwing away your smoke willy-nilly, then it's probably not a viable option. By doing this, you'll probably ultimately notice 1. How easily you can tend to throw away your smoke, and 2. How valuable your smoke can truly be. Another tip that has to do with utility is retaking map control. Sometimes it's best to just give the map control to your opponent, especially if they're spending a lot of utility on it, or just to take it back later. If your opponent has decided that they really want to take mid one round and they're spending all of the utility they have on it, sometimes it's best not even to contest through the barrage for utility and just let them have it. At that point, your opponents will be left with barely any utility left, and that will be very hard for them to win the round. If you really wanted to get mid back, you can even do it as soon as all of their smokes and mollies have faded by just using some flashes and perhaps some smokes of your own. A great example to showcase this is the famous A execute on T-site Mirage. A lot of the time CTs try to hold on the site regardless of all the utility, but oftentimes playing it for a retake is a smarter option. If your opponents execute out of spawn onto A site, you can just decide to give it up. Wait for all the smokes to fade, smoke ramp yourself, and then let a teammate smoke Palace. Molly Ninja, Tetris, and Under Balcony, and there you have it, the easiest retake of the century. Sure, this might take a lot of coordination, and maybe that's not that easy, but if you're playing with a friend or two, you can definitely pull this off. And if you're not, you can just smoke and molly one of the spots on your own, and it should still be very doable. Something else that not a lot of people are utilizing enough are off angles, especially late round. Off angles in Counter-Strike are very strong. It usually catches your opponents off guard and thus allows for some free kills. The only weakness of it is that it's very hard to fall back from, and if you get flashed, you're probably dead. By playing off angles later on into the round, you'll still be able to catch your opponents off guard, but you'll be a lot less likely to get flashed as your opponents might probably have already used their utility already, especially in pugs. It might feel a little bit awkward at first because you might not be used to it, but make sure you try it out. You might even be able to pick up some free kills and a free gun because of it. The next trick that we have for you is a little bit of an advanced one, but if you have the right lineup, you can put in a little bit of practice and it's very doable. We're talking, of course, about self-boost on Short Roof Inferno. Getting boosted on Short Roof Inferno is very strong, so oftentimes you see people getting boosted there, but not a lot of people know that you don't need a teammate to get up there. Boosting yourself on short is a lot more convenient because you can let your teammate make the plays that they want to do and you don't have to disturb them on it. It's also very great because we know a lot of the time, especially in matchmaking, teammates aren't actually willing to help you out, so even when your teammates are the most toxic people that you've ever met, you don't really have to rely on them for this boost, you could just do it yourself. The next tip is map specific, and since it's my favorite map and I don't see enough people doing it, I just had to include this. If you're playing Connector as a CT on Mirage, you should probably understand when you can use your smoke, or when you should use your smoke. And that's going to be exactly when your opponents are putting pressure on mid and they've smoked off the window player. If you're a window and maybe even your cat player is smoked off, it's the ideal time to use your smoke. The goal of smoking Connector should always be to either waste your opponent's smoke in the window or hopefully on window at cat, or to kill people with a sort of a one-way while they're trying to run up short attempting to kill your B players. If you use your smoke earlier, 9 out of 10 times you're wasting it and you should have held onto it. For the second to last thing on the list, we have truly abusing the SMGs to their fullest extent. SMGs in CS are actually pretty powerful, especially guns like the MP9. A lot of the time though, and especially in the lower ranks, people don't really know how to use them. Or even worse, play the SMGs exactly the same as they would use a rifle. A gun like the MP9 can really shred at close and medium distances, but if you're using it to hold longer angles, it becomes really difficult to control. If you ever wonder why pros can win so many ecos and forest buys, that's probably because they're so efficient at both the SMGs and Desert Eagle, so try to get better with those guns just like them. Hell, maybe it's even worth to play a CT side map using only MP9 just to see what it's all about. By the end of it, you'll be a much better player, and I can promise you that. Alright, it's time for our final piece of advice of the day, and that is to learn to retake smokes. It's honestly saddening how little people know and use retake smokes, even though when they're used right, they can be so effective. After finishing this video, we'd advise you to go on YouTube and learn some retake smokes for the maps that you play the most. Once you've done that, I'm pretty sure that you're much more comfortable at playing retake as well, making you a more rounded player. Well guys, that's unfortunately going to be it for now. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and if you guys did, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Ring that notification bell if you want to see more videos such as this. Doing so will mean that you won't ever miss another Pro Guides video, and we really want to help you guys out. While you're at it, don't forget to head over to ProGuides.com and check out our live coaching feature, where you can go ahead and get yourself a coach, and if that's not really your thing and you just want to sit back and watch a video, then we have some classes by high-level players and Simple himself. Anyway, with that all being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and peace.